What's up, guys? This is Young Local, and my name is Brian, and today we're going to be discussing Brett Kavanaugh and his journey to the Supreme Court. So before we begin this video, I want to remind you, this isn't about red versus blue. This is about right versus wrong. This is about conversation, and this is about respecting all viewpoints. So let's talk about Brett Kavanaugh. The situation, if you don't know about it, to really understand where I'm coming from in this video, you need to have a little background knowledge on Brett Kavanaugh, the nomination process, and what has happened so far. So to quickly sum that up, Brett Kavanaugh was nominated by President Trump, and for several weeks, there's been a tough nomination process. Initially, it looked like Brett Kavanaugh would be confirmed without any opposition in terms of Republicans. Republicans have the majority, therefore all they need is all the Republicans to be able to confirm the justice. Now, the situation that has happened with Brett Kavanaugh is a little bit unorthodox. What we saw was we had many accusations, many people come forward with accusations that Brett Kavanaugh was involved with a lot of sexual misconduct. Now, before we point fingers, before we say that's right or that's wrong, we have to say this. You and I, we have no idea whether or not any of the accusers are telling the truth or are telling a lie. So if you're sitting there saying that it's a lie, if you're sitting there saying that it's the truth, you're wrong. You don't know, and I don't know either. And the only people that really do know is Brett Kavanaugh and the accusers themselves. So to discuss that and the issue that I have with the nominating process that's happened here, what we've seen is Democrats wanting to hold up the confirmation process because these accusers did come forward. I think that's fair. I think that any official that is running for any kind of position or office or even a justice position on the Supreme Court should, pause any kind of confirmation, any kind of, lifetime appointment if people come forward, especially multiple people who do seem to have some corroborating witnesses attached to them. This is what we're seeing. Republicans want to confirm Brett Kavanaugh for multiple reasons, but it seems to be mostly political reasons. One of the potential reasons is maybe overturning Roe v. Wade. We don't know if that's for sure what could happen from this, but that is one of the things that are on the table. Another thing on the table is President Trump and his pardoning power. Right now, when he pardons someone, it just applies to federal charges, but it doesn't apply to state charges because of an exception, a dual jeopardy exception that's been in our Constitution for a long time. And what this means is, what we're seeing is that there's a good chance that Brett Kavanaugh will vote to get rid of that exception, which means President Trump, or any sitting president for that matter, will be able to pardon someone, not just on a federal level, but on a state level too. And I think this is a dangerous amount of power for any president, regardless of your ideology, to have. Personally, I don't think anybody should be able to pardon anybody for any reason, but the fact of the matter is they can. Now, until this happens, we have had a check on it. States have had a check on it. States have been able to charge, people with the same crime if they committed it in their state, and if the president pardons them, it doesn't mean the state has to drop those charges. And that's been kind of a check on that large amount of power that one man has, that one person or president has. And when that check goes away, I fear that many things are at stake. So the other issues that come to mind for me personally is there is a Russia investigation going on. Now, whether or not you think that the Russia investigation is warranted or not, it kind of goes back to you and I don't have all the facts. We're not investigators, we're not professionals, so we can't really comment on whether that investigation is necessary or not. We get told by the media that it's acceptable or that it's not acceptable, but the fact of the matter is you and I can't make that decision if we're not in the position to review all the facts. We're not. And there's a lot of things that are classified, there's a lot of things that we don't know. But I personally am comfortable living in a democracy where investigations are respected, where investigations are completed till the end, and if somebody is guilty or not guilty, the investigation plays out fully and thoroughly, and we find out at the end. Now, when we have a man, President Trump has threatened that investigation many times, quite frankly in a way that makes him look guilty. Now, looking guilty doesn't make you guilty. It doesn't. I can't sit here and say he's guilty because he tweets about it every day. I can't sit here and say that President Trump is guilty because, for someone who, I can't sit here and say he's guilty because if this happened to any other president, they would remain silent on it. I can't. He's very loud about it. He tweets about it every day, but I can't make any kind of conclusion from that. But what I can do is see that Brett Kavanaugh is a threat to that process because he believes a sitting president can't be indicted and can't be investigated while sitting as president. Now, that's terrifying for a number of reasons. Obviously, in a democracy, no one person should be above the law. Unfortunately, that pardon power kind of gives him, that little above the law possibility. But what we're seeing is a threat to the whole investigation, a threat to the process, and quite frankly, I think a threat to democracy. Because while President Trump may not be so bad, and I'm not saying he's bad, I'm not saying he's not bad personally, but what I am saying is that any sitting president, whether it's him or the next 10 presidents, shouldn't have the ability to shut down an investigation into them, shouldn't have the ability to sit in such a powerful office and not have the ability to be investigated if something went wrong. So the issue with Brett Kavanaugh is there some agenda that he's going to fulfill? Why did they want Brett Kavanaugh so much when there was many other qualified people that were able to be appointed? They were on the same list that Brett Kavanaugh was on, but he didn't publicly come out against indicting a president. He didn't publicly come out against investigating a president, but Brett Kavanaugh did. And Brett Kavanaugh's got a lot of accusations against him, but they still stand behind him. The American Bar Association even said that they should not vote to confirm Brett Kavanaugh because they reopened an investigation themselves. Now, that is pretty big. So what we know is that as of today, it looks like that Republicans plan to confirm Brett Kavanaugh as soon as tomorrow, which will be Saturday, the 6th in October. October 6, 2018, they'll probably have Brett Kavanaugh confirmed to be on the Supreme Court. Now, this is frightening because over the last week, they had a sham investigation. Now, the reason why I say sham is with all the accusations, with all the corroborating witnesses that went with those accusations, there's no way that the FBI had time to do a thorough investigation in just 1 week. In addition to that, the FBI was limited on who they could interview. They didn't interview Kavanaugh himself or Dr. Ford, which was the main person that was accusing them of wrongdoing. And quite frankly, when you're not interviewing key witnesses, when you're not talking to them, to me, it's impossible to have any sort of thorough investigation. So far, it kind of appears that this FBI investigation was meant to just have the okay from the FBI to confirm them. And it seems to be a very alarming and undemocratic process in that regard. The fact that the president limited, the FBI's ability to interview people shows that the president was comfortable having him investigated by the FBI as long as he is able to control who the FBI talked to and who they didn't talk to. And I think who they didn't talk to is the most damning evidence that there is some kind of cover-up happening here. I'll put a link to all these sources below, guys, but I really do think that regardless of whether you're red or blue, that we shouldn't have a Supreme Court justice, being confirmed to the highest court in the land for a lifetime appointment when we haven't done a thorough and complete investigation, for one thing, and two, because there's other people that are qualified. We're going into an era where we're putting completely partisan people on the highest court that was supposed to remain free from these partisan issues. And the biggest issue with that, I think, is the loss of credibility for the Supreme Court. I think tensions will rise huge from this. I think that people will turn out to vote as a result of this, regardless of how they feel. And I think that American democracy is a little worse off if they confirm Brett Kavanaugh, which it seems like they're going to. So to sum up everything that I'm saying, however, there's a lot of decisions that he's made of his judge that I looked at and I questioned. He's overturned juries, and repeatedly it seems that he's sided with corporations as well as the government, particularly in search and seizure cases where juries argued it was unconstitutional, but he took it out and said, the government's right. So personally, I think that is a little bit too much power for the government to have, too much power for corporations to have. And I think that we need to go back to a fair process. And I think that fair process really was there when it required a 2/3 vote to appoint any Supreme Court nominee. That 2/3 rule has been in place for a really, really, really long time, and it was undone last year to get Gorsuch in there. And I think that the Supreme Court is becoming illegitimate in the way that it is leaning far one ideology, especially when that ideology isn't representing the full population anymore. So at some point, I think we're going to be more divided over this. At some point, I think that, people may get hurt over these decisions. And it's something that democracy is going to have to beat. So you and I need to be able to have these conversations, to be able to sit here and to respect each other, even though we may have some differing viewpoints. But to sum up everything with Kavanaugh, I'm against the fact that a very small percentage of judicial record was released, and most of it was kept secret from the American people. That's one big red flag. The second red flag was that the FBI did not do a thorough investigation, that more people are coming forward every day for those assault allegations, along with corroborating witnesses with those, and yet we're still advancing the nomination. And three, the biggest issue I have of all, is his stance on essentially the president being above the law. So I think we need to look at those issues, and we need to understand that regardless of whether you're red or blue, that can't be good for democracy. Imagine if the Democrats had appointed somebody that was extremely far left, but under the same circumstances, people were coming forward accusing them of assault. We had an FBI investigation that appeared to seem as a sham, considering all the lawyers are saying, oh, the FBI didn't even talk to my client. And then three, let's say we have a far left justice say now that the president can't be investigated. It shouldn't matter what side you're on, ideology is. It should not matter what political party you belong to, if you even belong to one. What should matter is the democratic process, and this should alarm everybody, regardless of what side you're on. Transparency is extremely important for any functioning democracy, and what I'm seeing with Brett Kavanaugh is we don't have that transparency, and what we do have is the appearance of a cover-up. So that's my discussion, guys. I'll leave some links below that you could take a look at to really go along with this information that I brought here today. But I really think that Brett Kavanaugh is a threat to our democracy, and I don't think that because I identify one way or the other. I'm actually no party affiliation, and I really think that if we appoint him, if we confirm him to the Supreme Court, that America will be worse off. Thanks for watching, guys. I'd love to hear your opinions. Leave them below. Let's comment about it. Be respectful, as always. And if you have any ideas, if you have any discussions that you really want me to go over, send me a message, send me a link, go to my website, younglocal.com. You can even check out there, and you can email me at brian@younglocal.com as well. Thanks for checking this out. I appreciate it. If you want to see more, click the subscribe button, and also hit the like button if you like this video. If you don't, hit the dislike. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you later.